If the physical devastation is overwhelming, it is the human misery that cannot be measured. There are neighborhoods all over Kobe that look like this. Wood-framed houses collapsed. Whole blocks burned.
We saw this stuff 5 miles, 6, 7 miles that way. Same scene repeated over and over again. The scale of it is, this is what's new about this, is the scale.
Sort of urban failure, basically. This isn't Armenia, you know. I mean, it's not. I mean, this is not the third world.
That's right.
This is Japan. I mean, and you read United States. I mean,
yeah, we think somehow it's not going to happen to us. But this is something that, you know, like I said, Armenia, where all the buildings collapsed and 30,000 people died. But this is happening in an advanced industrialized country, and that's it's got to be a big wake-up call.
In the Nagata district of Kobe, Japanese soldiers dig through what is left of the houses and shops, looking for the bodies they know are there. Emergency workers have also arrived. They too have been organized to join the search. The local police station collapsed onto its ground floor the night of the earthquake. Residents report missing relatives to officials working in a tent across the road. In the debris, the remnants of human life. Photo albums lie open. A couple search through the ruins of their house for a few bowls and cups.
People are just trying to find any one little thing that they can grab onto out of this rubble that will mean something to them, that they can hold on to carry them forward. And look it up here. You've got a little shop owner who's setting up, trying to just do what he can to be. This is his neighborhood. This is his area. Imagine if this was your life. This was your house, your family, your relatives.
That was the thought that I had as we were walking through those other residential areas, is what if I drove home and found something like this at my house with my family inside, or, you know.
Professor Suzuki went to ask a man from the neighborhood when the fires started to reduce the neighborhood to ashes. The story he was told was unbelievable.
The earthquake happened just before 6, and the residents say that by 7, the fire had already reached here. The fire came so quickly there was no time to help the people buried in the buildings that collapsed.
A family carefully sifted through the ashes of their house. They were searching for fragments of bone, all that was left of those who died there. Oranges, a traditional Japanese gift for the dead, were left to feed the souls of the spirits.
When you get to this magnitude of the suffering and devastation, it's stunning. It's just stunning.
How has this changed your perceptions of what an earthquake like this would be like in an American city?
Well, I think, again, as Craig said, it makes me realize how quickly it could happen, how suddenly it could happen, and also how even if we have plans, and even if we have prepared for emergency response, and even if we have mutual aid agreements and all of these things, that a disaster, by definition, is the most overwhelming event that a human area can suffer, and you can't keep up with it. It's so big, and it could be so big, and this is so big that you just realize what it means to have a disaster. And if there's any message for people, it's to, you know, we really have to take a hard look at what our level of preparedness is and the things that we ought to be thinking about, because it will happen.
When we come back, we'll be joined once again by Sheila McVicker from Osaka. Joining us again from Osaka, Japan, ABC's Sheila McVicker. One of the surprising things, Sheila, is that the numbers are still changing so much day after day after day. You would think that even with the extraordinary damage, that they would come to some sort of a final count pretty soon.
What's happening with the numbers is that every time someone who is on the missing list is found and in fact confirmed dead, it seems that there is someone else who is reported missing. So we're not seeing a big decrease in the number of those who are still missing and who have yet to be found. In addition to that, there are whole districts of Kobe where fires burned fiercely, and as I've said in the report, burned fiercely almost immediately after the quake struck. People have said that whole families were trapped in those houses. We don't know if those families have been reported missing. So it may be that we are never sure exactly how many people died there.
What's the weather forecast? I mean, you're in the middle of winter there as we are here, but it's colder there than it has been, for example, here on the East Coast.
It's cold. Last night it froze, and weather forecasters are predicting rain sometime within the next 48 hours. That can only increase the misery.
Talk a little bit, as you did in your first report, about the infrastructure. And when I mean infrastructure, I mean what's going to happen to the businesses? What's going to happen to transportation? How many months is it going to be before things even return to a semblance of normal?
Well, it's going to be years before Kobe comes back to what it was before this quake. One person I was talking to today said what they need is a Marshall Plan to rebuild. The world is not going to stop and wait for Kobe to recover. Kobe was a wealthy, thriving port city. It was Japan's second largest port. We were in the port today. That port will be out of commission for a very, very long time.
Now, again, one of the things we haven't talked about is there must also now be hundreds of thousands of people out of work. How are they going to just earn the money to be able to rebuild a home or find a home and feed their families?
Well, Japan is a very expensive country to live in, for starters. Second, some of those people will get work. There are going to be lots of construction jobs in Kobe for the reconstruction program. But for many people who are office workers or professionals, it's difficult to know what they will do and where they will go. Kobe is not a 20th century city at the moment. It is not going to be a 20th century city for some time.
How are the various levels of government responding? I mean, I'm speaking now from the local level to the national level. Are the Japanese good at picking up the pieces after something like this?
Well, there's been a lot of criticism, which people say is a very un-Japanese thing. Japanese are normally characterized as being extremely patient, extremely gracious, extremely willing to wait. What's happened in this case is that people are saying of their government, of the local governor and of the national government here, is that they haven't done enough. And indeed, even yesterday in the quake zone, there were no tents put up for shelter. People are sleeping cramped, sometimes hundreds and even more in school gymnasiums with no indication of any more permanent place to stay. We've said it's cold. A lot of people are sleeping in their cars or even sleeping outside because they're afraid to come into buildings. There is no sign of a massive food distribution effort. Most people still don't have water. There are a lot of problems. The government has big transportation problems. The roads are gone, the railroads are gone, but there's no sign that they're utilizing the port facilities that still exist to move in massive amounts of supplies. And people are getting angry and impatient.
Sheila, you are one of our firewomen who has covered practically every disaster that's happened over the last few years. In terms of the emotional impact on you, put this into some sort of perspective, would you?
You know, there's one thing that the pictures can't show you. We can show you all the destruction. We can show you a lot of the misery. But what I don't think we can really show you is the look in people's eyes. And I thought I knew what I was going to see when I went there today. And I was shocked. There is a vacantness and a loss and just an incomprehension in some of these people. They have lost, if not physically their lives, they have lost the fabric of their lives. And many of them just don't know literally what they will do.
Sheila McVicker, thank you very much. I'll be back in a moment.